afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Life Hacks with Mac. Today, I've got the pleasure of interviewing Lloyd and Shoshana, who run a phenomenal organization, and we're going to get into some details about a subject that's very close to my heart, but also something that I feel is very under, what's the word? The news are not putting enough emphasis on what is really happening out there. And especially during lockdown, we've had a situation where homeless have had the benefit of being homed, but now being put back on the streets. And that is a massive impact on individuals. And we wanted to take this opportunity to really remove some myths about the stereotypes that we think about when it comes to homeless people, understand why Lloyd and Shoshana go and do this labor of love and how it all came about, and how you can make a difference by either helping them or, depending on where you are in the world, going and doing something similar and taking that little step to go and make a difference in the world. So Lloyd and Shoshana, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I'm really excited to understand what started this whole process. So, to give everybody a little bit of background, could you just let us know what was the thing that sparked the idea to go out that one time that's now evolved into 4 years later?
Right.
It was down to me, wasn't it? Well, basically, wherever I go, and the case for everyone, wherever you go, you will see somebody sitting on the pavement. It's that iconic image of somebody looking destitute, sitting on the ground. And it just tugs at your heartstrings to see somebody in a bad way. And what can you do for them? Immediately, what can you do for them? You can throw money at them, but we haven't all got money to just give out. And then obviously there is the aspect of what they're going to do with it. Are you helping them, or are you just going to be giving them money that they could use in a way you may not want to do? So it's always used to get to me when I saw people think, well, how can I help them? And I'd seen posts about people making up little bags of goodies of underwear and bits and survival bags, and thought, oh, that sounds like a great thing. Christmas came and went, and you'd hear loads of things posted about all these little projects that went out, and I on one occasion I'd been out working, I nanny, so I'd walk through a local park, and couldn't help but see somebody who was laying on a bench, covered in a sleeping bag. Couldn't see the person, but what struck me, what really caught my eye, was the fact how neat this person was. It wasn't that kind of conception of, it's a messy person just out on the street. He had everything in a logic. Everything was tidily put under his bench. Obviously this had come from some training in his sort of earlier life, but it really, it connected with me. And being an artist, I was looking at it in a different perspective. But that really, got to me, and I thought, what can I do for this guy? And happened to have a little bit of food on me, and I thought, I'll leave it for him. Mentioned that to a friend, and she started sort of inquiring for donations to actually go out and go somewhere substantial where you could actually get to people. And that's where it really started. Also, just on other occasions, I'd seen specific people that really got to me and had nothing with me, so how could I help them? It's just it's a moment in time.
So you started for the first, so it started in January 2017. So January 2017, Shoshana started. She did it with a friend. So the first time they went out in Watford.
Very crude the way we went out initially.
Plastic bags.
Black bags of clothes that we had to drag down the road, and thought, no, this isn't right, but we did it, and it was all very much sort of in the dark of, not knowing where we were going. we very quickly changed that to suitcases and the things that help people.
So what happened was so for the first 3 weeks, Shoshana went out with a friend and got a couple of people to go out with. So for the first week, she went to Watford. Second week, she went up to the West End, but they went up by train, and they had their stuff on the train, and they had suitcases, and they went to areas they thought, and okay, so they did it once, they did it twice. So in February, I said, you can't carry on doing it on the train. And we've evolved from suitcases to trolleys and having 5 litres of water, 5 litres of waters and food and everything else. But we can get onto this a bit further and further things that we do. But it's just evolved from being small to a fairly large amount of things that we go out. We went out initially in a 4x4. Then we transferred over to just Shoshana's small Peugeot 307, where we had everything at the back. Now we've got a 7-seater that it's just like a TARDIS. We're slowly bringing more and more stuff out, and surprisingly, most of it just goes. We have so much stuff at the beginning of the time, it just vanishes by the end, because there's so many people want and need stuff, and we give it out.
Feed the homeless. Before I go into the detail of how you go about it and what you take out and what you do, I wanted to really address the kind of stereotypes head on, because I had the pleasure of going out with you yesterday, and for me, the typical stereotype that you see on television or in the movies of homeless people, none of that matched up with what I got to see yesterday. And for me, people really need to understand homelessness, what that means, who these people are, You know, what is your perception, and you know, can you explain to people what homelessness really means and what type of people, you know, you've come across over the years?
Well, the people we've seen, I mean, there's a variety. You cannot point to one certain thing. A homeless person is not just one person. It's not a drug addict. It's not a alcoholic. There are people that have these tendencies on the streets, but then there's 65, 75-year-old people that are on the streets that are just like your grandparents.
And there's 18-year-olds.
And there's 18-year-olds. So there's the diversity. There's no one reason why people go on. And then putting homelessness into a category. Somebody said to us, and it's interesting. People are homeless. They're not hopeless. That's the whole thing. It's people are. It's just interesting. So it's a very emotional thing to do what we do, and the people we see are a variety of people. I mean, it's a remarkable.
Over this period of time, we've met people from all walks of life. We've met people that were wealthy business people that fell on difficult situations, marriage breakups,
divorces,
had losses in their family, everything, you name it. We've experienced the stories of that. There's not one. People say, well, how do they get themselves into that situation? It's not about that. It's very easy to fall into that situation. If you lose your job, like a lot of people are doing at the moment, if you lose your job and you don't have enough money for your rent, then your landlord's not going to say, oh, you know, give them benefit of the doubt and let them stay in that accommodation. They're going to kick them out straight away. And that's what happens to a lot of people. We've met people that are going through a divorce and don't have money for the costs that they've incurred, and so they just don't have the money for somewhere to live. It's a huge area. There's a lot of people that survive by going sofa surfing. That's the craze for some people, and some people manage by sleeping on buses, so they're not physically on the streets, but they're still homeless.
But also, it's not just on buses. They go to airports, and you see people. And this is what people don't know. You go to an airport to go on a plane. There are people there that live at the airport. They go from the West End and travel all the way to Heathrow, or they stay there because it's an environment that they can have a warm place to be. People don't want. There's a woman that we met 2 years ago that we saw, and she just doesn't ever sleep on the street. She can't. Well, it makes her physically sick to be on the street.
Not only that, it's for her safety. She feels that she'd be in danger if she does sleep on the street. So she has a process that she has. In normal circumstances, she uses time by doing things like going to the library, going to the airports, going to sitting in hospital waiting areas, just to kind of use time up. That's all she's really doing, and we've met up with her on multiple occasions, just to lend an ear and show her support.
So we go and have a coffee with her, and then we take her. So we have an hour and a half or 2 hours that we spend having a coffee, having a chat with her, and then we go to Sainsbury's and buy her some food. So this happens once a month, once every other month. But she contacts us direct, and she knows our number, so she rings us, and she leaves a message, and then we arrange to meet. And it's just bizarre. These people are real people. She was a professor. She was a professor, and and it's just gone from being a professor to
no one's exempt from falling into hard times. It can happen to anyone.
What surprises a lot of people that comes out with this is how well educated some people that are on the street. You see people that are sitting there reading books or having reading books that you'd never read yourself. I mean, they're looking at they're looking at philosophical books, and you're thinking, okay. And it's just, there's so many extremes that the whole thing about the answer is, and I know we're doing one thing, but it's the extremes from one person to another is completely different. And I think it's different areas as well. Certain areas, certain people are known for different types of homeless people, but it's...
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because in my experience going out with you yesterday, I sensed this wasn't about, and we've spoken about this, previously, about just going out for that, and as you previously mentioned, self-fulfillment. So you're not going out there because, you want to kind of get your a naughty badge or go and get your name on something, and it's like, the dog for Christmas kind of thing. I've done my one good deed, and that's it. This is a proper labor of love where you rain or sunshine, you haven't missed a week in four years.
Yeah. Well, over COVID, we had about a month off, but we did have people had a guy coming out a month or two up. But the thing is, it's the whole thing is we will go out, and we will make sure we go out, because I do posts. I do posts on our Facebook page is Help and Hope the Homeless, Hearts in London, but I do that on a regular basis, and I've stopped over COVID, and I'm going to start up again. But every time I do the posts, and I was doing it on a weekly basis, I call them my friends on the street, because they are friends now. That's the whole thing. And we see them every week. We see them more than sometimes your own friends. Do you know, if you're seeing them every single week, they get to know you, and they get to, I mean, it's a bizarre thing. You're going out to see people, and they're teasing you, and they're talking to you like they are your friends, and they are human beings. And it's
you learn they have a sense of humour.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't stop just because you're out on the street.
So we stop and talk to somebody, and we say, instead of he always used to say, when he wanted a tuna sandwich, when we gave out tuna sandwiches, can I have my sing-song sandwich? And we knew what he meant. Tuna, sing-song. Now we've changed it to cheese. He said, can I have my mouth sandwich? And these are the sort of quirky things that we know. And there's so many quirky things that we know about people on the street that people don't even realise that that happens. And people say, well, hang on, were you on the street, or were you? No, because we've learned it from what we've been doing on a weekly basis.
I think that's a something that people don't realize. And one of the things that I got to witness yesterday was that human element, the fact that people got given respect, they had dignity in the conversation, they weren't looked down upon, and my history, and I spent many years helping some of the largest charity organizations in the world do fundraising, and seeing large portions of this fundraising contribution that go to these organizations go to funding CEOs with lavish lifestyles and all the rest of it, and very little ending up where it needs to be and being used in the charity. And yesterday I got to see a whole new way of doing things, which was all about the people, and not just about going out and collecting a lot of money and then being very clinical and going, here, come for your cup of soup, or come for, grab your handout. That was for me, it felt like the warm food and the hot drink and the all the other things that we'll go into a bit more detail later were byproducts of the human interaction that you went out and offered. And that was, for me, priceless.
Well, that's exactly the reason why we do it, because we go out. We've seen so many charities, and I've said this many times, is that people go out and they say, right, it's Christmas time. We've got to help the homeless people. It's terrible. It's they're freezing cold in the winter. Let's go and do it, and let's go and get 15, 20 people to make up bags, and we will put something on Facebook, and we'll get £40,000, and we'll buy everything, and we make sure that we make up a bag with our logo on, and we'll pass it out to them. The problem they've got with that is it is all in good intentions, but we see people, and we see the homeless people coming back saying, I've got a lovely bag, can you take it off of us, because there's so much of the stuff we don't want. You've got to know what the people want before you give it to them.
People don't realise that when they want to do good over Christmas, that their intention of giving out these bags of the obvious items that they feel people need, that they're doing what somebody else is doing. So they'll get multiples upon multiples of things. And then they can't store it.
Yeah, so
it's like stockpiling at Christmas, and then where do you put it if you're homeless?
Well, they don't have it. They have it. You get things thrown away or given away. I mean, it's remarkable. They say so. What we've done in our charity, well, it's not a charity, but what we've done is that if we've got £100, we don't spend £100 on buying toothpaste or buying socks. We've got to make that stretch. So Shoshana goes to charity shops and giving it, paying forward. So giving further money to other charities. So she sees jogging bottoms for £1. If lots of charities go and buy all the jogging bottoms or all the hoodies from Primark and spend £10, £15 on 2 items, we're trying to go and get things from charities are asking for donations of these things from other people so that we can pass it on to it. And it's saving. We're not going to chuck all the money at one thing. You've got to let it go as much as it can go. So every single week we buy hot dogs, and Shoshana gives out 40 to 50 hot dogs every single week. We go into Aldi, Lidl, or whatever. We buy 10 hot dogs for £1. So what we're giving out is a hot dog, a hot meal for somebody for 15p, a roll and a thing. And if you can imagine, if you're buying that or you're getting it or you're literally physically buying something and they're going in to buy one, they'd have to pay £2.50 for that. It's costing us 15p to give it out to them and trying to keep it hot and everything. That is what we're trying to do. Stretch as much of what we're given to go out to people. We've done that, and up until June of this year, it cost us very little to go out besides the donations and things. But as of June of this year, they've changed the Mayor of London's changed the congestion charge. It's now till 10 o'clock in the evening, 7 days a week. So it costs us £15 to go up there just for that, and £10 petrol. So £25 every single time we go up there before we even start. That's before Shoshana goes and buys boxer shorts, pants and socks, and all the things that are throwaway items for homeless people.
And £15 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when you put it into context of how much it costs to potentially feed somebody, that's 100 people that could have got fed.
Yeah, exactly. The food, the amount of things that we're, but because,
that's just, that's not even just for you. That's for every volunteer that goes in has that same cost impact.
Yeah. Well, no, that's per car. So. Yeah. If you're if you're driving an electric car, fine, you're exempt. But if you're driving a diesel, then you've got extra money on top as well, because then you've got the ultra low emission zone, which is another £15 or something like that. So it's becoming more and more that instead of encouraging charities to go out, you're getting the London councils trying to make you avoid coming out because you can't afford to do it.
So it's like we need somebody out there to sponsor an electric vehicle or an electric bus that we can get you in and out of London with.
Well, that would be
In an
fantastic.
ideal world.
Yeah, in an ideal world, that'd be fantastic. But we're just happy to get. I mean, how temporary it is, the congestion charge going till 10 o'clock at night, I don't know. But generally, when this is put on and it starts, it goes on for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And we don't know when it's going to stop. And at the moment, we've got to take it as it's going to go that we're going to have to pay £15 every single week. And we're not going to stop going out there. But the thing is, it's going to get to a stage where we're going to run out of our donation money, and it's going to cost us personally to go there every single week. And it's...
just on that point, because this whole thing came about as a self-funded and funded through donations and volunteers. And you're not an official charity. What was the thinking behind that? Because would it not be easier to become a charity?
Becoming a charity is not an easy thing. I mean, people do it, and people start off to be a charity. You have to have 5,000 before you even start. So you have to have donations of £5,000. Then you've got to prove that you're a going concern, that there's accounts to go forward. There's so many. The reason why we did it is we
won't get to that.
We may get to a stage where we're going to be a charity, but the reason why we haven't become a charity is not because it's just that we want to be grassroots. We want to be the way we are, and although we're getting bigger and we're getting bigger all the time, we still want to be just giving, and that's the whole thing. And the more, when you become a charity, it gets complicated. You have to have trustees and things like that. And we're doing it. And when what's surprising is when we speak to people on the streets or our friends on the streets, they go, "What charity? What church are you from? And when we say, "No, it's just we're husband and wife. We started this up," they just say respect, because it's something they don't see on a regular basis. People don't do it. People do it on a one-off, or people do it but to have the commitment where we're at our stage of the life that we can commit to do what we're doing and be part of our life, this is it. This is what we do. And
for me, it's beautiful because of the fact that I've been involved with so many different charity organizations, and you're right, as you rightly say, it loses certain element. The moment you become a formal charity, then you've got all the, people end up doing it to be associated with a charity rather than the people. And then you get the whole clinical aspect of running a charity where, you're not taking any salaries. You're doing this out of the love of the people and going out there and, seeing last night where, for me, it was just, it really tugged at the heartstrings when we were walking down the road and somebody went, "Hey, Lloyd, and where were you guys last week?" And I was sitting there and I was like, and for me, I just wanted to take the whole moment in. It was just beautiful to watch that it was a human connection. And this person who is living in a box on the street has been given that respect of being called by their first name, rather than look down like they are part, because they live in the box, that they're trash themselves. And if anybody is watching this, I either urge people to kind of reach out to you and come along for the experience, or just the next time you see a homeless person, realize that could be an uncle, an aunt, a family member of somebody else, or even of your own, that especially during lockdown, where the whole world has come to a grinding halt in many organizations and businesses, that this is something that is out of the control of many people, and it's not by choice. How, for people that are wanting to go and make a difference like you are, how do you even get started? I mean, 4 years in, you guys were well geared up yesterday. You've got the flasks and the coffees and the teas, and it's like a well-oiled machine. And I was
it takes time to prepare all that, though. I tend to pack everything, and it takes a good few hours to prepare, and most of the week to source. So I think it's trial and error to getting to that stage.
You can't just run before you walk. That's the whole thing. It's no, I mean, the key elements we have, and we always keep to these, is never wake anybody if they're asleep, because it's taken them times to get to sleep. They're on the street. You also don't know how they're going to react to you if they're asleep. Some people say that know us, saying, whatever you do, please wake us up. We've got to see you, which is bizarre as well. That's a different matter. But the people that we don't know, you don't wake up, and always treat them with respect. So the first thing, if you don't know them, always say, excuse me, sir, do you want a cup of tea or coffee? Or, excuse me, madam, made a mistake occasionally that you said, excuse me, sir, and it was a madam, or the other way round, or they want to, but that's only a few times in the years I've done it, but these things happen. But it's always treat them with respect, always have a conversation, and it's amazing how much, on the first time you speak to someone, how much they come out to you, because you're actually treating them as human. You're treating them, suddenly, you've never seen this person before, and they're your best friend, and they want to talk to you for 25 minutes because they can't talk to you anybody else.
We've had people in the past say to us, it's one thing being given lots of things, but what they appreciated more was the interaction, more than being given anything else, was the interaction of just stopping and having a chat. Because, like everyone, people get lonely. They need a connection with other people. You find that the people on the street look out for each other. There's a kind of
code. There's a code. There's two elements. There is a code for homeless people, but there's another element where there's homeless people that don't want to associate with other homeless people. You've got, if you think about, so there's an element of people saying, well, why don't they go into hostels? Why don't they go, if they're given a chance of going under four walls, why don't they do it? So the answer is, and we've got the answer, is if you're in a room with 50 people that would snore, would steal from you, are alcoholics, are thieves, shout, or they don't. If you're a 60-year-old woman, what would you prefer to be? In a room where there's 50 people that possibly could do something to you, or be out on the street on your own? You'd be out on the street on your own. You'd have
a road that's probably got a camera in it that for security would have somebody caught on camera.
So these are the reasons why people are on the street.
It's a lot of strategic thinking.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even down to, and we've asked, and we've got the answer, but I'm not going to enter it now, is how do you go to the toilet when you're in the middle of a night? And we've got the answer for it, but I don't want to bring it up now, but they do have it. Or here's some food at 10 o'clock at night. Do you want it? No, if I'm going to eat it, it could turn my stomach. And where am I going to go?
Give them indigestion.
It could make, so you can't think it. You've got to think about where they're coming from. So you give them what they want. And that's the whole thing.
You know, that's, for me, is something so important, because as, you know, for people who don't or haven't experienced homelessness or worked with homeless people, they assume, and I know I had this conversation with you very briefly, where, you know, they'll go into the shop, as an example, if they see a homeless person outside a Tesco's or Sainsbury's or any other shop, and they'll go, oh, I want to help that person. So they'll go in and buy a whole bag of goodies and come out and give it to that person. And more often than not, they get it all wrong, and the person doesn't look happy with what, and the perception of, oh, well, they were ungrateful. You know, talk me through that, because I need people to understand that they're still dealing with humans here.
It's exactly right. So, okay. So this goes back to what I was saying before. If you are allergic to chicken, or you're allergic to nuts or something like, if you're sitting on a house, you're still allergic to nuts. If you're sitting there on the street, you're still allergic to nuts. It's not beggars can't be choosers scenario, because you're still on the street, you've got your dignity and you've got your thing. So if you see someone on the street, go up to ask them, would you like a cheese sandwich? Or what would you like if I can go and get you something? What would you like? And then you've gone up and you've got something, and then you come back and you give it to them, and both people have an interaction and both people are happy with it. So many times I've had, oh, you go out on the street, you'll never guess what I did. I bought somebody a chicken sandwich, I gave it to them, and you should have seen the way they threw it back at me. They actually put it in the bin, and you're thinking, okay, fine. But the reason why they did it, and when I said that, did you actually ask them what they want? No. Why would I ask them what they want? And it's doing something, and that goes back to doing something for yourself instead of the person that's there. It's making them feel good because I'm doing something, I'm going to help someone. Or it's also, I mean, to a certain extent, this is why we've gone out and we've only very rarely given money to somebody, or £1 or £2, because it's not what we're out there for. Giving money is not going to help somebody. Giving somebody a sleeping bag that's been donated to us that would cost them £50 is helping them. So giving them something that they may be able to go and get alcohol, fine. They may need alcohol, or somebody comes to us and we go, do you want a cup of tea or coffee? And they go, no, I've got this 2 litres of cider. That's fine, because that's what they're doing. And if you're on the street, that may have been the situation that you're in. We've had fantastic conversations of completely sober people that have just downed 5 litres of cider that we would be on the floor with, because it's their way of life. They can have conversations with you, and they can be, it's everything. It's all horses for courses.
There's another aspect to what people think is helping the homeless, which is when people have gone out for a meal, they may have not finished their meal and taken it away in a doggy bag, and they may have something like a half-eaten burger or sandwich, and then we've been told about occasions where people have been given food that's half-eaten. Nobody wants to be given food that's been half-eaten.
My favourite story, and I'm just going to interrupt my wife because I'm allowed to do that.
Back after this interview, though.
Is that one of our friends that were on the street, he said, and the whole thing is said, look, next time you have a sandwich, next time you have a burger, let me have the first half and you eat the second half and see what you feel like. And it's all down to dignity. You're not going to want to eat a homeless person's half of a sandwich. So it's exactly the same as somebody that's eaten half a sandwich. I can't finish it. I'm going to give it to you. It's just exactly the same. Anything that's people don't want it. Why would you want it?
And it's the same. I mean, especially now with COVID, even more so. It's like something you've touched. I want to unwrap it myself, make sure it's okay.
Yeah.
And you know, it's amazing how we forget the human element can actually make things and the communication just so much easier than trying to assume what somebody else wants. And you give the example of asking them whether they want a chicken sandwich or whatever they want. And last night I got to see where people got 4 trolleys presented to them with copious amounts of goodies on, and all they wanted was 1 or 2 items, because they knew there's no point in stocking stuff up. They didn't want to overburden themselves with things that were going to go to waste. And if anything, they were more conscientious of making a calculated decision as to how it was going to help them, whether it was water or a t-shirt or wipes that they could go and just cleanse themselves with, or underwear. But they were so humble and appreciative that you were giving them those options?
This is exactly what we do. Because we know what people want, we bring out what they want. So knowing that they need wipes, knowing that they need deodorant, knowing that the average person on the street are not going to take more than what they need. And sometimes we've been given from homeless or our friends on the street, please take this, cakes, or take this. We've been given this. I can't eat it. Go and give it to other people. And that's the way they've got to think. It's thinking of not me, me, me. I mean, don't get us wrong. We do have people on the street that just want to take everything. And it can get a bit, we can get a bit upset by that, because it's not, we're given things to give out. And if somebody's, but there's also the second person that's standing there going, hang on, mate, there's other people around. Wait around, don't just take everybody. So there's a human element in everything, and that there's a human element. And if you're giving out, everybody who asks for it should be able to get it. If they ask you, if they need to have a hot dog, it may not be that they're on the street. Maybe they are sofa surfing. But if they ask us that they need a hot dog, we'll give them a hot dog because they've actually asked it for it. We've had people that are street cleaners or on the street working, and they've said, "Can I have something to eat?" Or can I? And because they're street, they don't earn a huge amount of money, so we give them a hot dog, or we give them a cup of tea, or we give a busker a cup of tea because they're on the street, because they're doing things as well. So we do tend to give people if they ask us. We do get a bit worried when we see people that are very overly well dressed, or they've got a watch on that's they've come up to us and say, "Oh, what is this? I can have something." And we've got to make sure. But like I said, either 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out, there are people there. Everybody that when we go out, at the time we go out, are people that are genuinely on the street, that are homeless, that need to have the stuff, because that's what they need. They need it. We've had people going, "Oh my goodness, I haven't eaten for a day and a half." And you're thinking, how comes you haven't eaten? There must be something you mustn't be able to eat. There must be something that somebody's given. But we've had people saying, "We haven't eaten anything." Shoshana had it yesterday. Somebody said, "This is the first time I've eaten since yesterday or this morning." I mean, it's remarkable. How do we get to a society where somebody can't even have a square meal in the beginning of the morning, or go somewhere where they're welcome to have something? Where does that happen? How comes? I mean, the one thing I'm just gonna, and I know you want to ask me something else, but we have in Westminster, we have people we see on a regular basis, and they've said, we were sitting down, we moved away, and the police and the council came and took everything we own. And you're thinking, okay, how does that happen? But they do. They don't. The idea is people at the councils, and they don't want them on the street. They want to do something for them, but they can't do everything for everybody. So to move them along from where they are, they take everything away, thinking they're going to go. And it doesn't happen, because they come back to the same area and they still get things. So people make little shanty towns up, little tents up, all these sort of things. And they're trying to get rid of all that because it's not what people want to see in the West End.
Yeah, it's not aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
And that's the sad thing is remove the human element altogether, because I just don't like the way it looks. And the thing that I found fascinating, you alluded to this earlier, about the fact that people will rather sleep on the street than go into certain hostels or environments where they're actually under threat. And one of the ladies that came out yesterday, what really kind of got me was the fact that she'd come to the UK to volunteer and help people over here that were less fortunate. But due to circumstances and losing her job, she had ended up on the street. And the first thing she said wasn't, can I have something to eat? Can I have something to drink? Was, what are you doing and how can I help? And for me, that was just phenomenal to see that you don't know who's on the street or why they're on the street. And the perception of the, the shanty town and all the rest of it. I mean, we were in an area where there were several tents set up, but it wasn't by choice. It was strategically, because from a security perspective, they were in a doorway of some of the biggest brand names we know. And there were security cameras and there was lighting and there were, there was traffic going past on a regular basis, so they were safe.
The one thing you've missed, which was completely mad about it, is it was right opposite a police station. They were right opposite the police. But the issue that they had is the police would come out and wish them away all the time. So that's the whole thing. So there is the amount of stories I've got of the people that happen to people on the streets. I could go on for another 2-3 hours. It's just because we know what's happened to people. We know what's happened when people have gone into hospital and the way they're treated. And people on the street are sometimes treated differently to people that are residential or have got houses. Because unfortunately, if you're on the street, sometimes you're not as clean as you expect to be. It doesn't mean that you're a dirty person. It's just circumstances get to this.
Yeah.
And then there's two lots. I mean, there's 2-3 lots of people. We see really filthy people, but we also see people that you'd never ever, if they walk past you in the street in the morning, in the day, you never think they're homeless because they're so immaculate. And they're immaculate because that's what they want to be and that's what they want to show. It's just amazing how different the people are.
I mean, the one lady that you both stopped at and clearly have a good relationship with and spoke to for some time yesterday, when we arrived, I'd assumed she'd only been on the street for a few days because she had a pristine duvet, and everything was almost like she had just walked out of her house, and everything, her books and everything that she had was just so well looked after and taken care of. Yet to find out from you when we left that she'd been on the street for 10 years.
Yeah.
And, so the perception of what homeless is totally blown away last night. And I come from South Africa where I've seen people living in shanty towns and done a lot of work with charities over there. But you don't expect this in a place like London, in Westminster, which is, where people dream about going on holiday and going to these iconic places. Yet people are literally sleeping in doorways and for many years.
Well, the interesting thing is, and touching that, you're absolutely right. With her, we've known her for 4 years now. But Shoshana saw her on the streets 10 years ago, and we've known her. And she's a very private person, but has opened up to us. She's private in so much as we could never ever take a picture of her. She wouldn't want that. And we try not to mention her name. We try not to, but she's out there. She knows us. She knows us very, very well, and we respect her, and she respects us. And she's just the embodiment of what a sober homeless person is. Basically, it is a person that could be your grandmother. That you'd want them to be your grandmother. Let's put it that way.
She was beautiful.
Yeah. Simple as that. It is. Sorry, you go.
The thing is with a lot of people is that they all have their own characteristics. So you will get people that make a huge mess around themselves, and you'll go along and you think, oh my gosh, there's just
like our children do in their bedrooms. You can't keep it
everywhere. And then you'll get, a lot of people you meet will say, don't stand there because somebody's going to come by and they're going to make a mess. Now I've got to keep my little plot here tidy. They will actually go and they'll make sure there's no paper that's just blown into that doorway, and there's quite a few people we've met that have a routine that is like their home, that is equivalent of their home, so they will keep it just so. The other aspect is they don't want to make a mess, because they know if they make a nuisance of themselves, they will get moved on.
They give a reason, yeah.
If they keep their little area tidy, and some of the guys we meet actually look after the shop windows, so they've built up a relationship with the shop owners, and they will watch the window and they will feed back, because a lot of the time when we've been out, the evening time is when shops are having deliveries. So they will have a rapport with the delivery workers, and they'll feed back to the shop if there's anything that happens untoward. They'll actually, so they've got like their own little voluntary jobs that they've, just to make themselves useful. That's what they'll do. It's like everything.
And it's just remarkable how diverse people react on the street. It's until you see it, and I'd recommend anybody to see it, you don't know. I mean, the whole thing is it's all theoretical. It's all, it's like I've watched it on TV, so I know what's happened. And it's not the case. There's been documentaries about people on the street, and although they give an element of what people are like on the street, or they've shown that there's drug addicts, you've got to look that you're seeing the average person like the woman we saw. They're not the sort of person that would want to be shown on the street. They wouldn't want to be shown to be.
They still have an element of pride, absolutely.
They want pride. They've got an element that they don't want their business shown, and that's not going to make entertainment. It's not for the things on TV that people see. It's entertainment. They see that there's people that are lovely people, but they've got an element of badness about them. There's lovely people that are lovely people, and there's 9 times out of 10 the people you see on the street, even if they are alcoholic, even if they are drug addicts, if you get to know them, they want you to know where they're coming from. There was a young girl that we saw on a weekly basis that would have a conversation with her. Sometimes should be really on edge, sometimes should be 100% sober, but in front of us should start sort of having a little bit of crack or something. And she says to us, I've gone down from 5 to 6 pieces a day to 2 or 3 pieces. And she's proud of herself because she's going in the right direction. And she's possibly going to get herself a place to be in. And this is the whole thing. There's so much that we've seen of people developing over the years. And that's the whole thing. And that's what we try and aim for.
I think, just through the flavor of what you've discussed with me today, there's a great opportunity for people to learn and understand what homelessness is all about. There is an element that I want to finish off just asking about, because I'm conscious that I don't want to suggest that people go out and start helping homeless without taking certain things into consideration. One of the points that you mentioned last night is about the fact that you pick specific areas to go out, and because other areas are more high risk, and you do have other elements to consider. So, from your experience, what are the key things that you would suggest people take into consideration if they're going to be doing this, and what should they definitely not be doing?
From my own perspective, from the beginning, we were alerted about maybe people in a park or in a very, very dark alley. No, we wouldn't go and visit people like that, or if they're in a garage or something. If it's dark and you end up going into an area, you might be going into an area where somebody is under some sort of substance, and they may not be aware of who's coming up to them. So you're putting yourself at risk. So it's not a good idea to approach people that are in sort of secluded areas, because they may not know what's going on, and react in a bad way, just because it's just a protection kind of process.
Fight or flight, absolutely.
Yeah, so that we've always avoided going to places that put us at risk. We don't like to go into places where it's secluded and, you know, you're being taken into like a building car park or something like that. That's always best to avoid. It's always best to go to places where it's lit up. London is very well lit and very open, so you can reach people at your own safety.
Also, you've got to be very cautious. I mean, people have said to me, "Oh, I'd love to help this person. I see him every single day. He's a lovely person. Maybe I can get him to come in and have a shower in my home." And you're thinking, no, it's very, very well that you see them on the street and they may be 100%, but there's always an element that you've always got to realise it's a danger to bring to anybody into your house. And I've always recommended never, ever let anybody that you don't know. I mean, you want people to have a step up. You want people to go forward. And unless you're 150% sure that this person's never going to do anything or never going to change, because they could be 100% sober, 100% outside in the street. You bring them into your house, you don't know if they're suddenly never going to go away, or they're going to do, or you don't know what the situation is. So we'd highly recommend never take anybody into your home. Proceed with caution.
Trust. Trust on all elements.
And people trust. We trust the people that we know. We don't give our number out on a regular basis. We've only given it to, over 4 years, a handful of people that we've learnt about and that we've seen on a regular basis. And they're generally people that are over 60, over 70 that need our help. That they would, and also the one person that actually recommended me from my school, recognised me from my school days, and she was on the street. And this is the person we were talking about. So we've given her, but generally you don't give because of that element, because you don't know who you're dealing with unless you do. So that's what I'd recommend.
All with good intentions. It's just you've got to think about safety of everyone.
Yeah,
for sure. So, you know, if somebody was in a situation where they either need help or they want to advise people to go, what type of organizations, or where would you recommend that they, you know, is there a specific organization that you recommend that they call if they want, you know, any advice? Or
Simon, who comes out with this, always recommends Street Link. Street Link are the people that try and take people off the streets. A lot of our homeless people have outreach workers, and obviously they have a job to do, and and a lot of them do a very, very good job. But obviously, you can't put a round pin in a square hole. That's the situation. Not everybody. You can't. It's not a tick box exercise. So you can't just offer one person a flat if it's not where they want to be, or if it's not what they want, or if it's a room, or if it's in a hostel with other people they don't know. People on the street, or people have got into where they need to be for a reason. That's not saying that we haven't met people that we've seen over the time that have actually moved on. And we met one person that was actually had a Medal of Honor, and this was a Medal of Honor. He came back on the street. They gave him a place to live in Golders Green. He moved to Golders Green. He then came back to see us, and he said, "I'm moving back to America to do the job I originally did, to be a some sort of security." I wasn't even sure what, but he actually but he went from being physically ill on the street and having cancer to going to America to actually living back. And we were helping him all the way through, giving him food, and he would wait for us. And he reached out to find us again to say, "This is what's happened. I'm now back, and I'm back in society." And that's what
Sure.
we like to hear. And that's why we do it.
Amazing. So I wanted to wrap up because there's a lot of information we've gone through and some amazing experiences that you've shared with us. But I wanted to wrap up with a few things. So one, I know that Shoshana, you do some amazing artwork in aid of the charity, and I wanted you to just tell us a little bit about that and how people can check that out. And then after that, either Lloyd or Shoshana, but either one of you, just tell us how people can reach out to you for either advice, to get involved, to volunteer, to donate, to find you that electric bus to get you into London so you don't have these charges. Anything that can help. So firstly, Shoshana, if I can hand over to you for the
Thank you. Well, one of my passions to start off with has always been art, and I'm a figurative artist, so I'm always looking at people, and that's another aspect of noticing the people on the street, was looking at people and observing people as you're passing them. You're kind of looking at them in a different way when you're an artist, because it's like you're getting a snapshot of that person for a second, in a compositional way. In the beginning, I wanted to create something about the homeless that would kind of give people an insight that maybe feel too uncomfortable to look at the homeless that are on the street, because it's still a taboo thing. So that was always what I wanted to do, but didn't feel that I was comfortable enough to actually approach people to ask them, can I take a picture of you, to do a drawing of you? But then one of the homeless that we were seeing on a regular basis suddenly turned around to me and said, well, when are you going to do a drawing of me? Which I was a bit blown away by, but that was his comment, and that got me started. So he allowed me to take a photo of him, and I created a black and white picture of him. And from that point, I started asking people if I could take a photo, and did a series of black and white portraits of people. A number of the homeless have seen them and liked them. One particular homeless guy who's actually now back in accommodation contacted us, thanked us for our help over the period he'd met us. And also wanted a copy of the portrait so he could put it on his wall, so he could be reminded of where he's come from.
Wow.
And the point he's at. So that was very touching to have that. I've drawn a big issue vendor, and his picture hopefully will go into the big issue, one of the big issue magazines, to be shown that way, because they actually recognised who the person was through my picture, which was amazing. So I did create, from that point, I'm going off a little bit, but I did create a whole series of images which we put on a small exhibition. Exhibition which was well received. We had our local mayor come, and he enjoyed the evening. We had councillors. My feeling was to create art showing the homeless was to actually address the situation, and people are then engaging with something that they would have normally felt awkward about. And my own perception was that looking at these people, they are someone's family. And we've heard people say, oh, I wasn't there this last week because I went to see my daughter, or I went to see my mum, so they are still people, and they have links with family, just maybe something's broken down along the way. So that's what I wanted to address in my imagery as well. So the hope is to be able to put on another exhibition at some stage. I'm also offering commission portraits of
families, so that Shoshana can do draw family, or draw from a photograph, or possibly real life, I don't know, but we could do.
The idea is that I will use that for funding to buy much needed resources for what we're doing. So it's all going back, and that's another element to it.
Is there
an Instagram page which shows some of the examples of my artwork?
That's my question. So there you go. And what is the Instagram page?
It's Help and Hope for the Homeless. That will bring you onto the page.
Okay. So I'll make sure that we put those links into the description of the video on all our social media as well, so that people can click on that.
But what Shoshana did, and she didn't mention, is she actually put it on these drawings of these 4 or 5 homeless people that she did, all in pastels, are all on 4-foot high cardboard. So it's actually on cardboard. So when you see it, you've got this image of where on the images that they actually sleep on, which is the cardboard they sleep.
I wanted to use what is their home,
and it gives a different element.
It makes a connection. So
so they are fairly remarkable.
Makes a point.
So we have a Facebook page. We also have a website, but it's not really up and running at the moment. But we have got a bit of content in it. But our main content is on Facebook, and you can go into our page. It's at Hearts and London Homeless, or if you go straight into Facebook, it's Help and Hope the Homeless, Hearts and London, and it shows you what we do.
It's like it's like a diary of everything we've done, really.
Yeah.
You can go back and see each week, and it gives you an insight into our experience each week.
Sure. I'll have to remember to send you that video clip that I did last night, so that you can add that to the series.
Yeah, we've got that on WhatsApp, which is brilliant.
Excellent.
So we rely on a bit of money, but we've coped over the years with very, very minimum money. But what we do rely on is the mainstays of when we go out, and it's the pants, socks, jogging bottoms, hoodies. This is what people want on a regular basis. Blankets and sleeping bags. This is something we give. So when you see someone on a weekly basis and you're giving them a box of shorts every single week, they're going, well, what have they done with it before? But if you imagine that you're on the street, you throw away a pair of box of shorts. You're not going to go and sit there. You're not going to go to a laundrette and sit and walk around with wet washing. You have to have, this is disposable items. That's why we need them on a regular basis.
I remember one conversation that we had with one of the regular homeless, which was he'd washed his socks, couldn't dry them. So what was the use of that? How was he going to dry them, and how was he going to wear them, and how was he going to carry them around with him? So there is a logic to everything.
It's very, very nice that people want to give us donations, and we've had donations filling up the whole of our house, which we're slowly, we've got a storage element now, but we've got to be logical about what we give out. And obviously, formal suits are not going to help the homeless very much. I mean, job interviews, yes, but it's very few and far between that you'd give out, and somebody's has to ask us for that, and then we can do it. Formal shirts we can't give out. We can't give these sort of things. So these are the formal shoes we can't give out.
It's all
the logical things that we give out. Jeans, men's jeans, people want. They want it all the time. T-shirts, they want it all the time. All these sort of things are priceless to us for us to give out. And we give it.
Equally, people offer us on a regular basis the inner part of a duvet. Now, we can't. There's no logic to giving someone on the street a duvet that they can't keep clean, they can't keep dry. And a lot of the time we're offered double or king size duvets. Now they are heavy. They're heavy to carry around your house. If you're carrying them around the street, then there isn't a logic to it. A lot of the homeless want to go into shops and, you know, live as if, you know, like normal in the day. They don't want to carry an extra large duvet with them. So they are, it's all
for sure,
with good intention, but we try and avoid giving things out like that. We'll give out sleeping bags and blankets. We have a lovely lady who's part of a charity who knits blankets for us. Obviously, that's been put on hold with the COVID situation, but they were knitting us, a band of ladies were knitting us blankets, which we were giving straight out to the homeless and brightening up their day with these colourful blankets.
What's very reassuring is you go back 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, and they've still got the blanket that they had. We've given it to them, and you know it's the blanket.
It's a personalised one.
Because it's personalised, and you see it. And we've had people, just to carry on and leave it at this probably, is that we've had people coming up to us that we don't recognise. They've come up to us, go, "Hi Lloyd, hi Shoshana." 8 months down the line, "I remember you giving me a jacket. It was actually on my birthday. I wear it all the time. It's just the most amazing." And it's just, this is the sort of thing we get. It's just amazing.
Sure. So to finish off, how do people get hold of you? I know you've got your Facebook, you've got your Instagram, but if somebody's watching this and they want to either call or email, is there an email address or a website that you would recommend that they?
There is a website, but it's not.
So is it your Facebook or your Instagram the better one for people to
either or? If they get us on message us on Facebook, we'll get it. They can have our own email address, which I'll give you as well, that they can get to us. It's a personalised email of Shoshana, and we can do all that. We've now got, up until a certain time, we never had a bank account. We've now got a bank account that's especially for Help and Hope the Homeless, and that helps us pay for the congestion charge. So any donations can go into that. So we're all set up with that.
Excellent. Well, listen, just a massive thank you for just being amazing people and the great work that you do. I know this is not why this interview came about. It's more about just sharing and getting more help for those people, because, you know, in order for you to continue the amazing work that you do, unfortunately, the reality of these things are that additional support is needed. And anybody who's watching this who can help in any way, shape, or form, please, reach out. All the information will be in the description of either this video or on Life Hacks with Mac, and we'll make sure that Lloyd and Shoshana get the information, unless you go directly via their Facebook or their Instagram page, which is probably the best method. But again, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.